Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'll be reciting from verses 17 to 33. The first verse. Bhautikānaṁ ca bhāvānaṁ shakti-hrāsham ca tatkritam ashraddādāna nisattvam durmedan rashisatishyusah durbhāgamscha janan vikshya munirdivyena chaksusa sarvavarnashramanam yad dadau hitam amogadrik.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Translation. The great sage who was fully equipped in knowledge could see through his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of the age. He could also see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Thus, he contemplated for the welfare of men in all statuses and orders of life.
Verse number 19. Chaturhotram karma suddham prajanam vikshya vaidikam vaidyadad yajna santatahyai vedam ekam chaturvidam.
He saw that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas were means by which the people's occupations could be purified. And to simplify the process, he divided the one Veda into four in order to expand them among men.
Verse number 20. Rigyaju samatar vakya Vedas chatvara udritaha itihasa puranam cha panchamo veda uchyate.
The four divisions of the original sources of knowledge, the Vedas, were made separately, but the historical facts and authentic stories mentioned in the Puranas are called the fifth Veda.
Verse number 21. Tatrargvedadara palai samoga jaimini kavi vaisham payana evaiko nishnato yaju samuta.
After the Vedas were divided into four divisions, Paila Rishi became the professor of Rig Veda, Jaimini the professor of the Samveda, and Vesampayana alone became glorified by the Yajurveda.
Text number 22. Atarvangirasam asit Swamanto daruno muni itihasa purananam pitame romaharshanaha.
The Sumanto Muni Angira, who was very devotedly engaged, was entrusted with the Atharva Veda. And my father, Roma Harsana, was entrusted with the Puranas and historical records.
Text number 23. Ta eta rishayo vedam swam vyasyan anekada sisyai prasisyai stachrish shishrair vedaste sankino bhavan.
All these learned scholars, in their turn, rendered their entrusted Vedas unto their many disciples, grand disciples, and great grand disciples. And thus the respective branches of the followers of the Vedas came into being.
Text number 24. Ta eva veda durmedair daryante purisharyata evam Shakara Bhagavan Vyasakripana Vatsalaha.
Thus the great sage Vyasadeva, who is very kind to the ignorant masses, edited the Vedas so they might be assimilated by less intellectual men.
Verse number 25. Stri Sudra Dvija Bandhunam Traina Sruti Gochara Karma Shreyasi Muddanam Shreya Evam Bhavid Iha Iti Bharatam Akyanam Kripaya Munina Kritam.
Out of compassion, the great sage thought it wise that this would enable men to achieve the ultimate goal of life. Thus, he compiled the great historical narration called the Mahabharata for women, laborers, and friends of the twice born.
Text number 26. Evam pravritasya sada bhutanam shreyasi dvijah sarvatma kena yapi yada natusya dridayam tatah.
O twice born Brahmanas, still his mind was not satisfied, although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of all people.
Text number 27. Nati prasidad hridaya Sarasyatyaste suchau vitarkayan viviktasta idam chovacha dharmavid.
Thus, the sage, being dissatisfied at heart, at once began to reflect, because he knew the essence of religion, and he said within himself.
Text number 28 and 29. Dritavratena hi maya chandamsi guravo gaya manita nirvalikena grihitan chanu sasanam bharata vyapadeshena hayamnar yartascha prasadisatah drishyate yatra dharmadi sri sudra dibir apya uta.
I have, under strict disciplinary vows, unpretentiously worshipped the Vedas, the spiritual masters, and the altar of sacrifice. I have also abided by the rulings and have shown the import of disciplic succession through the explanation of the Mahabharata, by which even women, Shudras, and other friends of the twice born can see the path of religion.
Text number 30. Tatapi bata me daihyo hayatma chaivatmana vibhu asampanna iva bhati brahmavarchasya satamaha.
I am feeling incomplete, though I myself am fully equipped with everything required by the Vedas.
I couldn't hear. Is 31 recited already? Can anyone hear? Um,
31 years.
yeah, okay, 31. Text number 31. Kimva Bhagavata Dharma na prayena nirupitaha priya paramahamsanam ta eva hai achyuta priyaha.
This may be because I did not specifically point out the devotional service of the Lord, which is dear both to perfect beings and to the infallible Lord.
Text number 32. Tasyaivam kilam atmanam manyamanasya kidayataha krishnasya narado bhagavad ashramam prag udahritam.
As mentioned before, Narad reached the cottage of Krishna Dwaparayana Vyasa on the banks of the Saraswati, just as Vyasdeva was regretting his defects.
Text number 33. Tam abhijnaya sahasa pratyutayagatam muni pujayam asa vidivan naradam sura pujitam.
At the auspicious arrival of Shri Narada, Shri Vyasdeva got up respectfully and worshipped him, giving him veneration equal to that given to Brahmaji, the creator.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
That's from verse 17 to 33.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Rita Mataji and Shyam Prabhuji. Very nicely recited. Thank you.
Thank you,
So
Mataji.
I'm
Thank
just
you.
looking at the list. Prabhuji hasn't joined us yet. His Grace Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu, he hasn't joined us yet. So what we can do now is to perhaps read, which verse are we discussing today, Rasalila Mataji? Is it number 19? Hare Krishna, Rasalila Mataji. Okay, Jyoti Mataji, are we reading verse number 19 today, discussing verse number 19?
Yes, Mataji, 19.
So would you be able to share the purport, the verse and purport of number 19, please? And maybe I can ask Shailesh Prabhu to read the verse and the purport of number 19 while waiting for Prabhuji to join us.
Yeah, okay. 1 minute.
Is that okay, Shailesh Prabhuji?
Yes, I'll do the invocation prayers as well, if that's
Yes.
okay.
Yes, so we'll let Jyoti Mataji share the purport and the translation with us. We finished 17 and 18 yesterday, so it will be 19, Mataji. Jyoti Mataji will read number 19, please, the translation and the purport.
I'll start the invocation prayers while she's doing that. Yeah.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Shrinvatam Svakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hidayantasto Hyavadrani Vidunoti Suratsatam Nashtaye Prayashvavadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayet Kirim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Paramanandam Madhavam Om Jnana Tirimandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanutamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Prananami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare
Hare Hare. Hare
Rama
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. So sorry to interrupt. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I've just looked at the participants list and Prabhuji has joined us. His Grace Vrindavan Chandra Prabhuji has joined us. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for reciting the verses. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Sriji Kishori.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare
We have finished
Krishna.
reciting all the verses, and while waiting for you, I asked if Shailash Prabhuji could start reciting text number 19, which is the verse we are discussing today. And that's when you joined us.
Oh, okay. Do you want to continue, Shailesh Prabhu?
Absolutely no, Prabhu. You are here. Our senior is already. Infant session is finished. Senior session started.
Oh, I don't know about that, but anyway, thank you so much for tolerating and accommodating my lateness today, and thank you for keeping the session going, Shailesh Prabhu. So I understand we are speaking on. Hare Krishna. So I understand we're speaking on text number. Is it 19 today?
Yes, Prabhuji, and I've made you co-host now.
Oh, you've made me co-host.
Yes.
Okay. So if you could stop sharing your screen and I'll share mine. Okay. Okay, so Chatur Otram Karma Shudham Prajanam Vikshya Vaidikam Vyadhad Had Yagya Santayai Vedam Ekam Chatur Vidam. So word for word translation. Chatur, 4. Outram, sacrificial fires. Karma Shuddham, purification of work. Prajanam, of the people in general. Viksha, of the seeing. Vaidikam, according to Vedic rites. Vyadhad, hat, made into. Yagya, sacrifice. Santatyai, to expand. Vedam, ekam, only one Veda. Chatur, Vedam, in 4 divisions. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. He saw that the sacrifice mentioned in the Vedas were means by which the people's occupations could be purified. And to purify the process and to simplify the process, he divided the one Veda into 4 in order to expand them among men. Purport. Formerly, there was only one Veda of the name Yajur, and the 4 divisions of sacrifices were there specifically mentioned. But to make them more easily performable, the Vedas was divided into 4 divisions of sacrifice, just to purify the occupational service of the 4 orders. Above the 4 Vedas, namely Rig, Yajur, Sam, Atharva, they are the Puranas, the Mahabharata, the Samhitas, which were known as the 5th Veda. Srila Vyasadeva and his many disciples were all historical personalities, and they were very kind and sympathetic toward the fallen souls of this age of Kali. As such, the Puranas and Mahabharata were made from related historical facts which explain the teaching of the 4 Vedas. There is no point in doubting the authority of the Puranas and Mahabharata as parts and parcels of the Vedas. In the Chandogya Upanishad 7.1.14, the Puranas and Mahabharata, generally known as histories, are mentioned as the 5th Veda. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, that is the way of ascertaining the respective values of the revealed scriptures. So if you just bear with me, I wanted to bring up one slide presentation, which I think is applicable to this class. Sorry, but I just didn't have much time to prepare. Okay, here we go. Okay, let me share my screen. So the context of this verse is very interesting. Actually, this whole part of the Srimad Bhagavatam that we are studying is now going to describe Srila Vyasadev's feeling of dissatisfaction. In the previous verses, it's been described how Srila Vyasadeva, he had his ashram in Badrik ashram next to the river Saraswati. He went one morning to take his morning ablutions, to take his morning bath in the river. And he was having an experience, a very profound experience, which very beautifully sets the whole context of Srimad Bhagavatam. And in one sense, it enhances the glories of the Bhagavatam. And in these verses that in this verse we're reading today, is one of the reflections that Srila Vyasadeva is having. So let me just bring that verse up again and I can share the screen. So it says in this verse, he saw that the sacrifice mentioned in the Vedas were means by which the people's occupations could be purified. And to simplify the process, he divided the one Veda into 4 in order to expand them among men. So we know that Srila Vyasadeva is a Shakti Avesh avatar of the Lord, the literary incarnation of the Lord. And he appeared for the purpose of establishing and compiling the Vedic literatures. So in this particular verse, it explains Srila Vyasadev's, in one sense, plan in the Vedas. And what was the plan? It was to purify. It is to purify the living entities. Just like the ultimate purpose of a prison house is reformation, is to reform the prisoners so that they can come out of the prison and enter back into society and then live a normal life. That is the whole purpose of a prison. So in the same way, this material world has sometimes been compared to a prison house, and we are all prisoners. And the purpose of this whole Devi Dham, or this prison house that we find ourselves, is to purify ourselves so that ultimately we can redeem ourselves and enter back into our normal environment, normal society, which is the spiritual world. So in the Vedas, there are different ways that are mentioned to purify. But before we talk about that, what is the main purpose of purification? Generally, when we say purify, it means to bring back to original condition. Yes? To purify something is to bring back to its original condition. So what is the original condition of the spirit soul? Jivera Swarup Hoy, Krishnera Nityadas. We are eternal servants of Krishna. And what is the impurities that have covered us now? That is explained by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Isha and Dvesha. These are the ultimate, the deepest impurities. Icha and Dvesha. That I want to be the controller, I want to be the Lord. And secondly, the envy, the hostility that we feel towards the Lord. That is the purification we want to be. So it says in the Vedas, there are different ways to purify. You can purify by heat or the sun. Just like in India, every day, there are hundreds of trains that travel on the railway track. And people from the trains, they pass onto the railway track. But when the sun comes out, the sun purifies. So Purification can be by the sun. Purification can be by water. We take a bath to purify. Purification can be by time. Purification can come by mantra. And purification can come by sacrifices. So Srila Vyasadev's ultimate purpose in compiling the Vedas is to purify the living entities, so we can come out of these impurities and eventually enter back into the spiritual world. So in this verse, Srila Vyasadeva is thinking that he has prescribed so many types of sacrifices. And here it is mentioned 4 divisions of sacrifice. I'll be quite honest with you, I never had time before this class to research what these 4 divisions of sacrifices are. If any of y'all in today's session are more familiar with that, please, you can also share your knowledge. So he was thinking how he had compiled the Vedas. And the Vedas, he had recommended so many types of sacrifices for purification. So that ultimately says that the people's occupations could be purified. Because generally, by one's occupation, one gets certain types of fruit. One becomes attached both to the fruit of one's occupation and the occupation itself. That is the tendency for the living entities. Like we become attached, it goes without saying. We become attached both to our occupation, our work, thinking, I am engineer, I am doctor, I am wife, I am husband, I am mother, in so many ways. And also the fruits. So Srila Vyasadeva thought that by the method of sacrifices, that ultimately people can be purified. Now I'll share with you, because as I'm mentioning, and I'll talk a bit more about sacrifices, how the Vedas were divided. It's taking some time. I don't know why the computer's slow. So the Vedas are divided into different parts. Essentially, we have what is called a Shruti, and you get Smriti. Shruti is mother, and Smriti is called like sister. So Shruti is the original Vedas. And as Srila Prabhupada mentions, that Srila Vyasadeva compiled the Vedas. We understand when we read Srila Prabhupada's books that the Vedas was originally spoken by Lord Krishna to Lord Brahma. And when we read in Srimad Bhagavatam, in one sense, the Vedas was originally very compact in 4 verses. But with the passage of time and the deterioration of people's consciousness, Srila Vyasadeva, as mentioned in the purport, he broke that one Veda down into 4 types of Vedas. And each of the Vedas has different sections. Each of the Vedas is broken up into different sections. You get the Samhitas, the hymns, the Brahmanas, and the Aranyaks. The Aranyaksha means the Upanishads. And there's 108 Upanishads. And then that is the philosophical part of the Vedas, the Upanishads. We have knowledge or access. Srila Prabhupada translated Sri Ishupanishad. But Sri Ishupanishad is one of the 108 Upanishads. And they are the philosophical aspect of the Vedas. And then you get the Vedang and the Upaved. And these are different types of knowledge. Essentially, Veda means knowledge. Veda means knowledge. And The Vedang is like the different Vyakaran, which is like logic. Jyotish is astrology. Nirukut, Sikcha, Chant, and Kalpsutras. I mean, I do not know more about these. And then you get the Arthveda, Dhanurveda, Gandharva Ved, Ayurveda. Ayurveda, most of us are familiar with, is the medical science of the Vedas. So this is generally Vedas knowledge, and it's compiled in what is called Vedic Sanskrit. And Vedic Sanskrit is quite difficult to learn. It will take at least 9 years to learn the grammar. So Srila Vyasadeva, with the passage of time, he wanted to make this Vedic knowledge more and more accessible. And he compiled the Smritish, which means the sister types of literature. And the ones we are most familiar is with the Puranas and the Itihasas, which is under the Itihasas is Ramayana and Mahabharata, and then the Puranas is the 18 Puranas, of which we have the Mahapurana, is the Bhagavatam. Now you see in this diagram that Bhagavad Gita is separated. In one sense also, although the Bhagavad Gita forms part of the Mahabharata, it's a half-an-hour conversation, the Bhagavad Gita is listed separately here because original Vedas comes from Krishna, directly from Krishna. Absolute knowledge has to come from the absolute source. So original knowledge comes from Krishna. So because Bhagavad Gita was spoken directly by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is not considered in one sense to be Smriti or to be part of the Puranas or Mahabharata. It is on the same level as the original Vedas, because original Vedas were spoken by Lord Krishna. It was imparted into the heart of Lord Brahma. So Vedas here was, the Gita is the essence. And in the Gita, we know Lord Krishna says, Vedanta Krit Vedavid Aham Eva Vedya, that by all the Vedas, I am to be known. So there is a purpose behind the Vedas. And the purpose is that ultimately Krishna is to be known. And once Krishna is to be known, Krishna is to be surrendered to, and Krishna needs to be worshipped and served. Now, Srila Vyasadeva's idea was that gradually, depending on the psychophysical nature of the people, he tried to cater for different types of people with different types of mentality, with different types of consciousness, with the aim that they will be gradually elevated. Just to take a simple example, everyone and everything is dependent on rains. So the Vedas will say, rains are bestowed upon us when Lord Indra is pleased. So how to please Lord Indra is to perform some puja or some sacrifice. Like how we hear in the Krishna book, Nanda Maharaj was preparing to do Indra puja. And Lord Krishna, as a little boy, and went and asked his father, please tell me, Pita, what is this puja you're doing? For whom are you doing this? What is the benefit of this puja? Is it just a ritual that has been passed down from family to family? Or does it have some shastric roots? I'm paraphrasing it. So Krishna asked all of these questions to Nanda Maharaj. Now, so Srila Vyasadeva, that was his motive. He's thinking, okay, rains are essential. And people will understand, rains come by the mercy of Lord Indra. And who is Lord Indra? Is he the Supreme Lord? No. But for performing other sacrifices. So who is the Supreme? So in this way, the idea of Srila Vyasadeva was that gradually he will recommend processes in the Vedic literature that they will gradually elevate themselves, and eventually they will find Krishna. That was his idea. And unfortunately, it didn't work. It didn't work because by nature, we as spirit souls, we are unchaste. We are unchaste. And we are selfish. If we get what we want, if our senses are satisfied, then we will be satisfied with that. We won't look anything more. We won't look beyond the sense gratification. So you'll see in these verses of the Bhagavatam, this is Srila Vyasadeva's contemplation. And we will read about how his guru points out his difficulty, that his method didn't work. And in other parts of the Vedas and in Srila Prabhupada's books, he writes that the Vedas is also broken up into different sections: Artha, Kama, Dharma, and Moksha. Artha means economic development. Kama means sense gratification. Dharma means religiosity. And moksha means liberation. So the Vedas also has these 4 main categories of the or main divisions. And economic development. There would be economic development, but that economic development will be based on certain principles. Certain principles would keep people in sattvic living. Not like today. Today's economic development is based on capitalism. And the key part of capitalism is profit. That's the whole premise of capitalism. More and more profit. They call it gross domestic product. That's how they measure economic development nowadays. The more people are buying, the more people are spending, that means the economy is very good and everybody will develop. So they promote very much spending, and when spending reduces, the GDP is cut down and people panic, and the governments look at how they can increase growth. But that sucks the living entity, just sucks the living entity more and more into sense gratification. So the Vedas, they prescribe principles of economic development, like Prabhupada writes, for the Vaishyas, who were the merchants, their economic development was based on what? On cows and grains. One's wealth was measured on how many cows one has and how much of stock of grain one has. So those way, economic development was based on more sattvic principles. And sense gratification, karma, that was regulated sense gratification. Everything was regulated. There were some scars for everything. And the purpose was, when things are regulated, when aspects of life is regulated, then people they have some chance for purity, to become pure. And idea was the thing like Like Prabhupada when he first went to America, he was preaching to the hippies. And he was talking about sex life. And he was saying sex life should be only once a month when the woman is fertile. Besides that, there should be no sex life. So one of Prabhupada's disciples, I agree, I said, once a month, we may as well forget the whole thing. And Prabhupada said, very good, very good. And that's how you should think. So the whole purpose is regulated sense gratification. Should help us to come out of sense gratification. Like this fasting, so much. And then there is Artha Kama, Dharma, religiosity. And again, the Vedas, what Vyasadeva prescribed was religiosity or Dharma based on getting something in return. One should worship this Devata to get this result. So Dharma, the Dharmic principles were always based on getting something in return. And even ultimately, moksha. Moksha, which is liberation, even within moksha, there is selfish interest. Krishna is always in the background. Krishna is always there to serve some purpose. So, as Srila Vyasadeva says in the second verse, such religion, dharma projita kaitavatra, nirmatsaranam, that this type of religion, dharma, is cheating religion. It is cheating religion because it never gives the desired result. And as we discussed previously, what does it mean to cheat? To cheat means to promise something glorious and to deliver something very unsubstantial. So the Vedas, in terms of Dharma, they promise ultimate happiness. But we all know these types of Dharma, because they're not based on the actual Dharma of the soul, they never deliver happiness. They never deliver happiness. So, therefore, Vedavyas, you will read now, is feeling satisfied. He made such an effort to compile the original Vedas. Then he delegated it to 4 of his disciples, and then they broke it down. So much of effort, so much of thought was put into the Vedas for the ultimate upliftment and purification, but it never delivered. Never does. Never delivered, does not deliver. Because Krishna is never realized. Devotional service is never realized. So this is what this verse is about. And specifically talking about the yagyas and the sacrifices, which is one aspect. And Vedavyas is going through this deep contemplation in these verses. What went wrong? Where did he make the mistake? Why didn't it work out? And that beautifully sets the context now for Srimad Bhagavatam and then for his Guru Vedavyas to appear. So I'll stop here. Are there any questions or comments or reflections from anyone? Hope it makes sense.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan, Chandra, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna, Palika Mataji, please accept my
Hare Krishna. I just, as you are now explaining the change, Vasudev's contemplation, and then he's trying to change whatever he's written. Why did it come in his mind at that time? Is it because he did not contemplate before, or is it just because of the age was changing and he had some realization that what I have done, it's not suitable for the age is coming? That's I just wanted to know. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
There's a different ways different devotees have expressed it. The one I really like is like all of us come on this earth for a specific purpose, you know, and we come out to live that purpose. And as long as we are never in alignment with that purpose, we feel some dissatisfaction, some level of, discomfort, feeling, I'm not living my purpose. So one of Vyasadev's purpose was to establish very clearly what is the goal of all spiritual life and what is the supreme process to achieve that goal. And he knew that, and he could see that he had described so many paths, the path of karma, the path of jnana, the path of tapasya, the path of yoga. But he could see by his own experience that this was not making people ultimately happy. And the whole purpose of knowledge is to make people happy. And he could see, he could experience, even what he had compiled, as they say, was the real deal. He would see it. It would be just evident that people completely, like the devotees of the Lord, they are completely atmaram, self-satisfied. They don't feel they need anything else. They've got everything. They have everything. But his experience was, he was not seeing that in the people. That was one reason. And the other one is also in Kali Yuga. He could see that people also were confused. Like when you give people too many things, too many methods, too many processes, ultimately the people, they can't make sense of it. They can't make sense of it. So that was another difficulty, was that people could just, and then ultimately, these various processes, even the processes of praise, citta, atonement, they can't, is to purify, as I said, purification. To purify means to bring to original condition. These processes were inferior. They just didn't have the potency, and he could see that. So there's a few reasons, Palika Mataji, that he was feeling this dissatisfaction. And ultimately, there's a bigger plan. Krishna has his plan, and Vedavyas is the incarnation. So he could have also been playing this whole scene out just to enhance the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam.
So it's a kind of, to me, it feels like it is Krishna's plan, definitely.
Yes.
And so far it was, through Vasudev, it was kind of it was allowed to carry on for some time. And so he then now realized, no, whatever I've written or given, it's not really the purpose of life. So,
Yeah,
So, he is incarnation of Krishna.
Yes.
So, how could it be like that?
That's a good question. That is a good question. If he is an incarnation, how could it be like that? One is mentioned is in the category of Shakti Avesh avatar, and as we spoke previously and described, there's different types of avatars, and their potency and the qualities they have is different. But ultimately, we see it as Krishna's plan. Like Srila Prabhupada writes in one purport very beautifully, when Maharaj Parikshit garlanded Samika Rishi with the death snake, Prabhupada raises in the purport that how could such a highly elevated, cultured person as Maharaj Parikshit do that? And then in the purport, Prabhupada answers that question himself. He says the only answer is that Maharaj Parikshit acted so uncharacteristically because it was the plan of Krishna. Krishna ultimately wanted Srimad Bhagavatam to be spoken. So we see this all as a plan of Krishna. So even
Yes.
Veda
Yes.
Vyasa's the dilemma, as we are reading right now and discussing, that is ultimately the plan of Krishna. As Prabhupada says, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of Krishna. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you. It's a lot of things to think about, when these things happen, and for us to understand deeply. Yeah, that's what we need to contemplate, like Vasudev. But it's not
Yeah.
going to be the same results, but you're just tiny little brain. And
Yeah,
of course, Krishna is there also in our heart.
true. Why I like this section, yeah, Palika Mataji, so much, because when we're trying to distribute Bhagavatam and we preach Bhagavatam, people have this conceptions that the ultimate knowledge is the Vedas. And if one day they can read the Vedas, okay, so many times people will come to me, where can I get the Vedas? How can I read the Vedas? Is there English translation of the Vedas? And we tell them that is very difficult, don't go there. Why don't you get a saram, the essence of the Vedas? And
Srimad Bhagavatam.
yeah, and we quote this whole pastime of Vyasadeva. Thank you, Palika Mataji.
Thank
Shailesh,
you. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, you have your hand raised.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavad pranams, Prabhupada. Thank you for a wonderful class, as always, very nectarian. I think just to expand on your very eloquent point there, I think as you said, it's Krishna's avatar. It's a Sakyavesh avatar, and of course, as part of the Leela is to effectively allow us to relish and understand that Vedic drive philosophy, without or excluding bhakti and devotion to Krishna, has little value. And I think that was the gist of this. I believe is that the pastime was to allow us to relish the nectarian recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, because until he recited the glories of Krishna and his devotees, the rest was not satisfactory. Was not satisfying to him. So I think that is from how I understood it from acharyas that I've read, that the purpose of that, of course, he is Krishna, so there's no way that he wouldn't have known. But it's effectively for us to be able to relish the Krishna's pastimes and more importantly, his devotees' pastimes, because 80% of the Bhagavatam is actually glorification of Krishna's devotees as opposed to Krishna. One very, very nice point on the economic side you mentioned, just to enhance your point, you mentioned the Vedic economy is based on, or wealth is measured in cows. Of course, that's correct. But actually, Vedic economics goes even further and deeper, where it is actually a truly gold-based economy, where true economic fortune was based on actual gold, as opposed to modern economies, which is based on just printing notes with no real underlying wealth. So actually it was a gold-based economy where gold was a very important commodity in the wealth calculation of kingdoms. But the foundation of trade and economic development was based on real wealth, as opposed to just sort of printing money as is today. So it goes much deeper, and it's actually quite fantastically mind-blowing, actually. But thank you for that.
Thank you for that point, Shailesh Prabhu. And recently I was reading some statistics. Which country in the world has the highest amount of gold? Do you know?
India.
India, yes.
India.
Yeah. The largest amount of gold.
80% of retail gold is sold in India. 80%.
Yeah, because people know to have gold is the wealth. Like our ancestors and our mothers and fathers, they would invest in jewelry, in gold, because that's where the wealth wealth is and was. That's why in India, it has the largest stock of gold in the world in the form of, jewelry and so on. And as you said, that was,
Prabhuji, China buys 38% of gold. India buys 35% of gold. So both together comes to nearly 73% or so. Rest of the world, they buy 27%.
Then we're talking about retail purchase as opposed to economic gold stocks. Economic gold stocks is different, but retail, in terms of purchase of retail and consumer, it's India's the highest purchaser.
Okay. Thank you, Urmila Ben. Any other comment or reflection from anyone?
Yes, can I ask some question, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna Puja Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Yes, this is Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Yeah, we can. Yes. Does it? I mean, I've got a question which I'm very confused. So it may be appear confused to anybody else as well. Does it one lead to another one? But is it like that? That Dharma, Artha, Kama, and then eventually lead to Moksha, which I don't understand how you can go to Moksha by doing all these material activities.
Oh no, so the in one sense, Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha was, Vyasadev's idea was people will feel that they have a balanced life. Like the ordinary conditioned soul, if he's got some economic development, he feels satisfied, right? If there is sense gratification, they have a level of satisfaction. If they are religious, they feel satisfied. And you can think of the typical Hindu, Mataji. If they have got a nice house, they're doing well. A nice car, they're satisfied. If they have, their sense gratification, they're satisfied. If they are religious, they go to the temple, they feel satisfied. And ultimately, they feel at the end of the life, if they live their duties very nicely, they will get moksha. So
without doing anything, without doing any devotional service.
Yeah, but they were thinking religious. They do all the pujas, every puja, they're very well, they give in charity.
Okay.
Shram, like when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking to Ramananda Rai, he was asking them, he asked Ramananda Rai the question, what is the ultimate goal of life? And the first proposal that Ramananda Rai made was following Van Ashram Dharma. And he quoted one verse from the Vishnu Purana that says, if one follows Van Ashram Dharma perfectly, then one will get moksha at the end. So the general idea was, if you enjoy sense gratification in a regulated way, you follow your economic development according to religious principles, you are very religious, you do all your pujas, you are very submissive to God, at the time of death, you will get moksha. That is the general Hindu conception. And I meet so many Hindus, and you ask them, what is the goal of all scriptures? They will say moksha. And then you ask them the question, so how do you attain moksha? They will invariably tell you, you do your duties in life very nicely. At the end of the life, you will get moksha.
Yeah.
You must have experience of the Puja Mataji. That's a general consciousness of the Hindus.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how they think. And also other thing they say is that I'm living my simple, happy life. I'm not doing any sins. I'm not doing any pap. So yes. I can get liberated.
Yes, and I love God. I love Krishna Bhagavan. I'm a devotee of Krishna Bhagavan, they'll say. They say, but there's no uttama bhakti there. There's no unmotivated, uninterrupted bhakti. It's all motivated.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what this whole verse and this whole what we're going through now is Vyasadev's reflection and his realization.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Very well explained.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan Chandra. Just a quick question came into mind as we are discussing about the wealth and the amount of gold India has. But when Parikshit Maharaj was speaking to Kali, he said, yes, you can take a place where there's a lot of gold and all those 4 places. So how does it work here?
Oh yeah, he gave shelter to Kali in places where there's gold. And because, you know, where there's gold, invariably in Kali Yuga, there's wealth. And where there's wealth, there'll be sense gratification. And there'll be sinful activity, you know, meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication will be there. Where there's wealth
So
in Kali
India,
Yuga.
India has the most gold?
Yes, and it all depends on the consciousness of the Indians now. If they store the gold and they use it for sense gratification, they'll become degraded. But there are so many Hindus, ladies, especially when they go to see Lord Balaji in Tirupati, whatever gold and jewelry they have, they give it to. Therefore, Lord Balaji, he's the wealthiest deity in the world.
Yes, yes.
So they can use it for sense gratification, or they can use it in the service of the Lord.
Service of the Lord. Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other question or comment? All
So
right.
temples have got more gold.
Lord Balaji has huge
Yeah.
stock of gold. Yeah.
I'll send you the WhatsApp today.
Sorry, I didn't understand it, Urmila Mataji.
I'll send you the photos of, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I'm going to send you 4
Okay.
photos today. I just received today.
Okay, Mataji, that'll be nice.
I don't know if it's true or not.
Okay, you send us. All right, thank you very much, dear devotees, for your patient listening and your participation and your wonderful questions. All glories to your service. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubevacha patitanam pavane
Vaishnave Namo Namah.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava
Vaishnavanda ki
Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki Go
Jai
Premanande.
Krishna.
Hare
Just Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you.